In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the art of perfection, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentients. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e Sangha, prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni, possa io ottenere lo stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri essenziali. Good morning, buongiorno. Come abbiamo fatto nei giorni precedenti, io parlerò in inglese, perciò chi ha bisogno della traduzione in italiano, Francesco gentilmente oggi ci farà la traduzione simultanea, per questo chi ha bisogno può mettere la cuffia e chi non ha la cuffia la può prendere di qua, ok? Quindi per la traduzione. Mi sa che oggi abbiamo anche la traduzione in spagnolo. Si alguien necesita de la traducción en español, tenemos también la traducción en español hoy, por eso tienes solo que coger los auriculares acá. Ok. One thing that has been very clear in the process of Buddha's teachings, and it's very clear also when we look within our own lives, is that we are not able to offer to others what actually we do not first want for ourselves. Actually, what we do is that we have the tendency no funziona, cosa? Ok. Vediamo un secondino ancora. It's okay. So So, we have the normal tendency, sorry for the voice, but it's like that anyhow. We have the tendency to see others, to judge others through the filter of our own selves. So when we see someone acting, when we see the choices that other people do, we always judge them as if we would do these actions. Like if we were in the place of the other, in that situation, if we would be doing that, this would mean that we would have this or that intention. So for this reason, that person must have been having this or that intention. So normally, we are not really much able to judge others without using the filter of our own experiences, of our own view of our own selves. Okay? And that's why also, when we talk about loving, love, as we said very clearly these days, it means to be attracted for the happiness, to wish for the happiness. So I love myself in the moment that I am attracted for my own happiness. And I have compassion of myself in the moment that I have aversion of my own suffering. When we say that we love someone, how do we know if we love that person or not? It's just to check, am I attracted by his or her happiness? And do I have aversion for his or her suffering? This is the meaning of loving and having compassion of the other. Okay? It may happen that we are attracted by someone, but we do not necessarily love him or her. This can happen also. But when we talk about love, specifically through the Buddhist point of view, it means to be attracted for the happiness of that person. It is not something conceptual, it's something deep in ourselves. Can you listen well? When the voice is a little bit fading away, but that's okay. Anyhow. So, there is a very basic point, which is actually, it's really, really very, very important. Both in the process of loving ourselves and in the process of loving others. Normally people say, oh, I don't have enough love towards myself. But what do we mean by that? Because if we go precise to the meaning of the words, actually there is not one sentient being that doesn't love him or herself. We all love ourselves. Tell me one person that doesn't want to be happy. Tell me one person that is not attracted by his or her own happiness. Tell me one person that is attracted by suffering. This doesn't exist. So we all love ourselves. The problem is that when we have love without wisdom, it's very frustrating. Because the point is, yes, I want to be happy. Yes, I don't want to suffer. And this is a very strong force that we all have, as we have been saying all these days. Okay? So this is love towards ourselves. And when we direct towards others, it's love towards others. The problem is not if I want or if I don't want to be happy. The problem is how. What do I do through my actions, through my interaction with the world, that will bring me a higher state of satisfaction, a higher state of happiness, and will avoid my own suffering? That's the key question that we all have. So I don't believe there is anyone that does not love himself. What I believe is that there are many of us that we simply don't know how to love ourselves, in the sense that we don't know what's the best for us. So, the first process in the teachings, in the path, is that first we must love ourselves clearly. And we must learn how to make ourselves happy, what it means for us happiness. And then based on that, we can actually project that into others. And here there is one very fundamental concept, which is very important actually. If we look to ourselves, one of the main causes of our own suffering and one of the main obstacles for our own happiness are our own expectations. Is the attachment we have for reality as we think it should be. And most of the times we don't suffer really for what happens. We suffer because it is not what we thought it should have happened. Most of the times we do not suffer for how people are. We suffer because people are not what we think they should be. So there is a very strong, inner conflict in the sense that we do not accept reality as it manifests to us. And then when reality doesn't manifest in the way how we expect that it should be, we think that reality is wrong. And we fight against it. Okay? So, we have the tendency to project, I will do this and I will do that, and with this and that, I will be happy. Once I'm able to avoid this, once I'm able to avoid that, then I will be happy, I will stop suffering. Because whenever we suffer, we project something as the cause of our suffering. We point a finger to someone or to something as the cause of our suffering. So we think that in the moment that that goes away, then I will be happy. But what happened finally is that we change situations, we gain situations, but somehow we are not yet as happy as we wanted. Somehow this inner sensation of insatisfaction, this inner hole that we try to fill up somehow, the lack of inner space that brings anxiety, the difficulty to deal with situations, it continues there. And most of the times, one of the things that really brings us the greatest insatisfaction and suffering is the fact that reality doesn't correspond to our own expectations, to our own projections, in many different levels, from the very small daily things to great things. So, if we love ourselves, but we lack the wisdom to understand the interdependence in which we live, which means things will never be as we expect, first of all. I don't know, have you ever had in your life the experience that you picture, paint your future, and then things are just as you expected? For me, not. Okay? And some things yes, some things less. You know, we may project something, and on some levels things may follow the direction we want, on other things less. But the truth is that normally we always project our future. And very rarely it follows exactly the way how things we expect. But at the same time, when things do not fulfill our expectations, when the future becomes the present and it doesn't fit what we thought it should have been, then we are upset. And we get frustrated. And we feel like a victim sometimes. And we say, why is like this? It shouldn't have been like this. And I ask you, why shouldn't it have been like this? Because I wanted differently. Who am I to say how things should be, sincerely speaking? But somehow we are very attached to that. And from all the attachments of our lives, when we have many attachments, We have attachment to physical pleasures, we have attachment to recognition, we have attachment to power, we have attachment to money. But from all the attachments, I believe that the greatest attachment that we have is the attachment for reality as we think it should be. And this creates a lot of frustration, actually. So, one of the very important aspects for our own life when we think about our own happiness is to understand clearly that we do live in an interdependent reality. Which means we are constantly interacting with everything that is around us. And things do not happen and will not happen in accordance to what we expect. Why? Because the world is unfair? No. Because we are not capable of having the awareness of all the variables that creates reality. We are not aware of all the aspects that influence the reality. We are not able to understand all of that. So we just see a very, very tiny part of the interdependence. And we try to understand, based on our previous experience, we try to foresee the future, thinking, okay, if I do this here and that there, then things will go in this way. Sometimes we're lucky, but very often we don't see all the rest of the picture. We don't see the whole picture. And everything in life is influenced by so many different causes and conditions. So basically, when something happens and it's not as we expect it to be, instead of being upset about it, just a matter to say, okay, I haven't seen all the aspects. Let's update our view of reality. Because if we are able to accept, not conceptually only, but deeply, that we are in an interdependent reality, which means everything that happens, everything that exists, comes through a complex relationship between parts. And there is a very interesting concept in the whole of this, which is that how to say, when something happens, anything, the normal question that we bring is why? And the normal tendency is to look for one main cause. But if we analyze it, we will see that we can never find one main cause that made that thing to happen. Anything that happens is because of so many little things that interact together. One example that I like always to give is the example, for example, us being here today. How many things were necessary for this to happen? So many. And from all these things that happened, there were many of them, even though they were very small, that if these things didn't happen, most probably we would not be here today. I like always to tell the story when Lama Ganchen, he was in India, and later he came to the West. If he had not been invited to come to the West, most probably we would not be here, that's for sure. Okay? So we are all here together. One of the main causes of this is that because Lama Ganchen came to the West, and all the other things that followed it, that brings us here together. And I always like to remember this story, in which one day Rinpoche went to one of his friends, that was later one of my teachers, Gyaltsen, that was Rinpoche's cook in Tibet, firstly, and then was a good friend of his. And then Rinpoche went to him, we are talking about the mid-70s, okay? So he went to Rinpoche and he said, Rinpoche went to him and said, oh, Gyaltsen, I am going to enter retreat, 1 year retreat, solitary retreat. And then Rinpoche had already prepared everything necessary for the retreat. He made a house, he prepared the seed, he did the offerings, he managed his duties around to be 1 year out of anything. He managed everything but one. And he went to Gelagpala and he said, "Oh, Gel, I'm going to enter into retreat." And Gelagpala said to him, Gelagpala was a man of very few words normally. He would listen very carefully, always very gently, but he would not speak so much. But when he would speak, he would be sharp as a knife. So he said to Gelagpala Rinpoche, "If I were you in this retreat, I would not be able to do not even one mala of mantras." And the Rinpoche asked, "But why?" He said, "With all the depths that you have around, can you relax and go into retreat? People come to me because I am your friend, because they feel ashamed to go to you. But people come to me to ask if I have any leverage on you to try to help to get their loans back." So Rinpoche, my teacher said that Rinpoche was a little bit upset with his very straightforward saying. And then Rinpoche actually didn't enter into retreat. Because why Rinpoche had so many depths around? Because he liked going out at night to fancy restaurants? No. He had many, many depths, basically because he would go to the house of the families to do pujas and healing and advices. And people were very poor at the time in the south of India. And people would talk to him about their difficulties. So there were people that were sick and could not pay for treatments, people that needed to send their son to school and didn't have money, whatever. Had difficulty to eat. It was a really very poor. So Rinpoche, what he would do is he would ask a loan to those that had little bit more. There was no one really rich at that time there. So he would ask a loan to those that had little bit more, and then he would give the money, not make a loan, he would actually give the money to those that were more poor and needed. So it was a sort of Robin Hood, but instead of stealing, he was making loans around. Okay? And there were not really rich people around, so he was asking to those that had a little bit more to give to those that had less. But finally, there he was, full of debts. So he followed what Gelagpala said, and he made a plan to say, okay, I go to the north of India. He had an invitation to go to the royal family of Sikkim. There was the mother of the king of Sikkim, the north of India, and she was sick, and he had an invitation to go there for healing the mother of the king. So he planned himself saying, okay, I go to the north of India to Sikkim, I stay 3 months there, I do many ceremonies, healing and so on, and with the offerings that I receive, I don't spend anything, I come back to South India, I pay all the loans, and I go into retreat. That was the original plan. So he went to the north of India, and he cured the mother of the king. There is a picture of the time in which Rinpoche is holding one painting of eye-opening Chenrezig. Because that was true, that practice that Rinpoche cured the eyes of the mother of the king. Anyhow, Rinpoche became so well known in Sikkim at that time that since early morning until late evening, he had people lining in front of his room for requesting for healing and blessings and so and advices. So when he would wake up, he already would have a line of people waiting outside. So what happened was that instead of 3 months, he stayed in Sikkim for 3 years. And then he sent the money to south of India, he paid all the debts, but he was there because people needed him and he stayed there. So during that time, he went to Nepal because he was very near to Nepal for Tibetan New Year. And they offered to Rinpoche the first time that the family of Tsetan offered to Rinpoche a long life puja. And during that long life puja, one of the persons that was present there was Yurgo. Yurgo was a Greek man that he had just opened a Buddhist center called Karuna Center in Greece. So he met Rinpoche and he was very touched by Rinpoche, and he insisted so much for Rinpoche to come to Greece. Making a long story short, finally Rinpoche accepted it with one condition. He said, I would go with one condition, that there are sick people in your country, that your doctors don't know how to cure them, and that I can I can have access to them. And they said, sure, that's not a problem. So a few months later, there was Rinpoche in Greece, and the day he arrived, they already took him to the hospital to see a boy, and so on and so on. And so my question is, what if Gyaltsen didn't say anything? You know? Rinpoche would have been there, said, oh, I'm going to enter into retreat, and maybe Gyaltsen, he thought, oh, you have so many debts around, but he said, who am I to say to Rinpoche what he is to do or not to do? And then maybe he just don't say anything, keep to himself that worry. And Rinpoche would have gone into 1 year retreat, most probably. And most probably by that he would not have met Yurgo, and things would have gone very differently. So the question is, was that the only action that determined the fact that we are here today together? No. But would we be here today together if that small action would not have happened? No. So this shows us that every action, from the smallest it may seem, every word we say, every word we listen, every thought we have actually, as we interact with the world, it determines the future in the same time that it's not the only cause. There's so many things that need to put together and build up this very complex reality in which we are, in which each and every one is fundamental, but nothing happens out of only one action. I think, is it clear, this concept? Okay. So, whenever we ask to ourselves, whenever something happens and we ask ourselves, why did it happen? Because of countless causes and conditions. Okay. And why I was not able to understand and foresee it? Because I don't have the whole picture. That's all. Okay? So inevitably, we will project our future. Inevitably, we will try to see, okay, I will do this in order to get that, and we will plan our things. That's fine. But we should be humble enough to accept that things will not be as I expect, because I don't have the whole picture. And I can only make choices, and I can only project myself based on my own understanding. That is a very, 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 very small part of the whole. Okay? This is quite clear, right? So when we have that understanding, we naturally generate more satisfaction. And we are less in conflict with the world. So one important thing is that we stop pointing the finger to one or to another, saying, oh, this happened because of this happened because of that. Because truly we don't have the control, and truly we don't know. One thing we know, that every small action that we do makes a difference. So do we have choice? Yes. Do we have freedom? Yes. But do we know exactly how things are going to go? No. So, and sometimes we say, oh, but if I had known, I would have done differently. Me too. That's, I think, one of the most stupid words that we use sometimes is if. Because, you know, if I had 4 legs, I would run faster. And then what? If I had eyes behind my head, I would see what is happening behind me. I can go of if, and I can say anything. Once I put if, I can put anything after it. But the fact is that I need to deal with what is there, not with what I thought could have been there. That's all. And this is a very basic part, which is, first of all, know what nowadays is a word that is in trend, which is reality check. Which is we do some basic reality check. What are the resources that I have? What can I do with that? And that's all, and we do the best with what we have. So, when we have this awareness for our own selves, we will do the best for our happiness, understanding that we don't have the whole picture's awareness of all the aspects, and most probably things will happen in a way that we don't expect, and then what we do, we update our image and we go forward, instead of being stuck because things are not in the way how we thought they should have been. Because the problem also of being attached to reality as we think it should be is that I project the future. Then the future becomes the present. It is not as I projected before, then I am upset. I am a victim, I enter in conflict, I suffer about it. And then when that present becomes past, I still suffer. Because I did not receive what I was supposed to receive. People didn't treat me fairly. Things didn't go as they should have gone. And so on. And we are still suffering from the past because the past was not as we thought it should have been. And I've seen many times people for a long time completely trapped into the past. But not into the actual past. Trapped into the past that didn't happen. It's crazy. But there we are. So, we love ourselves, no doubt. But the less wisdom we have, the more frustrated we will be. Wisdom means understanding reality, respecting reality. Okay? Now, when we love others, when we transfer that strong wish to be happy and not to suffer, and we share it with others, to have a strong feeling of love towards someone else without wisdom may bring a lot of frustration. Because basically what happens is that I really want you to be happy, and I project how I think you should be happy, and I project how I think you should not suffer, and how things should be for you. So we multiply. Not only we project for ourselves how the future should be, we project it for others also. And then what happens? It doesn't fit. And then I do everything, and there you are still suffering. As if it should depend only on us. So, we may even end up in a strong feeling of guilt because the person that we love is suffering. As if it was our responsibility for him or her not to suffer. Or as if it depended on us. That actually does not. So, one very important aspect when we talk about loving others, loving ourselves also actually, is that we must understand the limit of love. One of the very important limits of love is that it doesn't matter how much I love you, I cannot make you happy. It doesn't matter how much compassion I have of you, how much I love you, how much I wish you to be free from suffering, how much compassion I have, I cannot stop you from suffering. And sometimes we do not respect that limit. We do not understand that limit. And we enter into self-criticism, into self-judgment, into guilt, because I do everything and still you are not happy. What am I doing wrong that you are still suffering? Okay. But one thing we need to remember, the same way that is for us is for others. Why are we where we are? Because of so many causes and conditions that interact. And when we love someone, we are one interaction in the middle of so many other things. So we will do our part to interact with the other in the best of our abilities. But this is just one tiny, powerful part in the middle of so many others. Okay. So another aspect is that when we have a lot of compassion, look to our own selves. What happens when we do have a very strong wish not to suffer? We reject our own suffering very strongly, but we do not understand why we suffer. Do we feel more frustrated? We end up seeing that our own suffering is unjust. Why is this happening to me? I don't know, but sure there are reasons. Do we ever ask ourselves why this is happening to me? I haven't done anything, at least that you remember and are aware of. But, so, very often we enter into this own dilemma with our own selves. Right? So this is what we do when we love others, we project the same thing on others. So sometimes, when we are into that way, compassion may bring aversion and aggression. You are suffering, you shouldn't be suffering, and I blame someone for your suffering. And we see this quite often, actually. Okay? So basically, when we see someone suffering, and we do not understand the mechanisms behind, and we actually think that is unjust, then we suffer for the suffering of others. If we are suffering for the suffering of others, this means we have compassion, but we lack wisdom. Imagine a Buddha full of compassion for everyone. If he should be suffering for the suffering of others, then the Buddhas and Buddhists, actually there is no, Buddha is an inner state, it's not male or female. But imagine a Buddha full of compassion. If to have compassion means we need to suffer for the suffering of others, then the Buddhas will be suffering like no one else. So how can we love someone? How can we have compassion of someone and do not suffer? How can we be sensible for their suffering, but not suffer for their suffering? By understanding and respecting interdependence. Why are you suffering? Because of causes and conditions, because of choices, because of interactions of the present, of the past put together, which generates in you a state of suffering. Why is this person suffering? Because there is insatisfaction, because there were choices made before, because of the environment, because of the body, because of the mind, because of the whole thing put together. That's why there is suffering. So, when I understand that there is an interdependence that works perfectly, then I say, okay, how can I interact with that person in order to make his or her suffering less. That's where compassion comes. Compassion starts from wanting the other not to suffer, and then acting in a way to interact in the best way to avoid that person's suffering. Because in the moment that I understand that there is an interdependence, I also understand the power of my own actions. So, I will just put myself in the way, in which way can I interact to help, instead of suffering for it. I don't know if it's clear, but it's really, really important that we develop this wisdom, and this comes deeperly from what we call the correct view of reality, which is not the subject of today. Okay? But the more we understand reality, that we live in a complex interdependency where everything interacts with each other and we don't have the whole picture. And let's use this word, which I don't like so much, but it's just. It's not unfair. It's a fair reality. It's a fair reality because every action that we do, it interacts in the rest, and we are responsible for our actions. So whenever we seize a situation, it's because of the choices, of the thoughts, of the conditions, all put together. It's like that. Sometimes we oversimplify saying, oh, why is that person suffering? Oh, because that his or her karma. Mostly saying this without understanding what karma means. Karma doesn't mean destiny. Karma means action. This means, why is this person suffering? Because of actions that were done and interact with each other, and then generate the suffering, the same thing for the joy, the same thing for the well-being and everything else. So, we understand that there is this interdependence, and we act with the humbleness that we cannot understand all the causes and conditions. But at the same time with the pride that we can make the difference. With small actions. And with the unattachment, with the lack of, and with, I would say in English, with detachment from the result. Because in this whole picture, we are not able to see the result as we act. So it's three attitudes that we can have together. Humbleness, in which we know that we cannot see the whole picture. So good self-esteem, so-called pride, in which we know that through our actions we can make the difference. Because every action does interact with the rest. And at the same time, detachment from the result, because when we do an action, most of the times we cannot really see clearly the result. Things takes time. Is it clear, these three things? They may seem contradictory. How can I have the humbleness and at the same time have the pride that I can make the difference? Basically because every small action is so powerful. But how can I know it's powerful? Because I don't see the results. In a very simple way. How can we understand the future, or the present even? By understanding the past. By learning the past, we can understand the present and we can predict the future. So when we look at the past, we see how every small action was so powerful. So by that we can understand in the present that what we say, what we think, makes a big difference in the whole picture. Okay? So, these main two attitudes together, humbleness in which I don't know which are the causes and conditions of everything, but there are reasons for things to be as they are, together with pride, which self-esteem, strength, in which you say, but I can make the difference. Every action I do is not in vain. But without attachment for its results. Okay? Because most of the times we cannot see the result, relationship. Sometimes yes, but most of the times not. Okay? So now, this was just one point I wanted to bring today, which I believe is very important, which is we must have wisdom together with love and compassion. Love and compassion without wisdom just brings more frustration. It brings other good things also, but it brings a lot of frustration. Okay? And that's why very often we have this idea of, oh, to be compassionate means you need to suffer for the suffering of others. And if I am not suffering for your suffering means I don't love you. That's not true. If I don't care for your suffering, then I don't love you. But it's like if I, even in the meaning of the word compassion, this became clear to me. One time I was in the south of Italy, Naples, and I gave one speech there. And one man came after the teaching, and he very clearly said to me, he said, excuse me, nice what you said, but it's wrong. I said, okay, no, enlighten me please. And he said, compassion means compatire la passione, which means actually to share the suffering, from the meaning of the word. So it means actually to suffer for the suffering of others. And then I said, look, I don't know what is the etymology of the word compassion from Latin, but I can tell you that the meaning of this emotion and this beautiful attitude is not to suffer for the suffering of others, at least from the Buddhist perspective. But later, talking to a friend, he told me that actually there is another etymology, looking in old books of etymology, quite old texts, in which compassion actually, it doesn't mean compassione, it doesn't come from actually condividere la passione, which is to share the passion, to share the suffering, but it means actually to comprendere la passione, which means actually to comprehend the suffering. So it's coming from the same roots. It's very interesting to see, because when we see an etymology, we see that many of the words, they come from the same roots, like the word friend from Latin, it comes from the same roots as the word friend in Sanskrit. In the Latin, we use the word amico, which actually in Italian, but it's coming from the roots of love, amare, which actually the roots of the word friend is those that love you. And in Sanskrit it's called mitra. And mitra is coming from maitri, which is also love. So it means who is your friend is the one that loves you. So it's nice when we see that, in different languages it comes from the same roots. But anyhow, this is just to say that what does it mean if someone loves us? It doesn't mean that the person needs to suffer for our suffering. It means the person needs to care for our suffering. As I think it's clear difference, no? But it's important, I just repeat it because I see in our cultures very often this idea, you are not suffering for his suffering, so you don't love him. But if I love you and you start suffering, then I need to suffer. Then you love me and you suffer for my suffering, and then it's endless. Let's say we love each other. And then you are suffering. And then I suffer because I love you. But then you love me. So you suffer because I am suffering. It's endless. On the other side, actually, what happens is that when we love someone, we must care for their suffering. We must care for their happiness. And here, there are two types of love and compassion. We say, Chamset Sampowa and Champa Chimbo or Laksam. Have Ningje, Champa, and Laksam in Tibetan. Chamda Ningje, love and compassion, is the attraction towards the happiness of others, that's love. Attraction towards happiness, that's love. To ourselves or to others. Aversion towards suffering, that's compassion. But then there is another level which we call Laksam. Laksam, it means something like higher intention. So, let's first look at ourselves. One thing is, I want to be happy. The other thing is, I believe that I can get happy and I will do everything necessary for it. Making an example. One thing is I say to myself, oh, I must have a good health. Does anybody here want to be sick? No, we all want to be healthy, right? But do we do everything we know is good for our health? No. So this is an example of love without determination. So which means, I know that this is good for me, but I don't have enough strength, I don't have enough self-esteem to say I can do it. So basically it remains in the world of ideas, in the wish, and not in the actions. It's like saying to oneself, oh, I must have a good, long life with good health, but in the meantime I continue to eat junk food and not to exercise and to be overstressed and so on. And I had a good intention to be healthy, but it will not work, right? So, when we deal with others, one thing is the feeling, which it can be very sincere, of love and compassion. I truly want you to be happy. I truly want you to not suffer. But I don't see, and I don't believe in myself, how can I do to help you? So basically, it's a state of love without self-esteem, that I can do something for that. So it remains in the part of intention, and it doesn't transform into action. It doesn't mean that it's not love. And it's not, in this case, I love you, but I don't do something for you, not because I don't love you, but because I don't trust myself. I don't see my own ability really to do something about it. I feel so impotent, so incapable, and then finally I am just there. I wish, but I don't do anything really for it. So, the next step after developing love, to develop this deep determination, it is I love you, and I believe in myself. I have a good self-esteem, in which I believe that I can do something to help you to be more happy. I can do something to help you to avoid suffering. And I will do anything that is in my possibility for that. And then I act. I normally like to call this passive love and active love. Even though traditionally it's not called like that. It's just called love and compassion, and then there is laksam, which is this higher determination. Okay? What makes the shift between passive love and active love? Active love doesn't mean that there is more love to the other. It means there is more trust to oneself. Is it clear? Because normally we may think, oh, you don't love that person enough, that's why you are not really doing anything for that. Sometimes it may be true. But very often, we do love the other. But we do not trust ourselves. We do not believe that we can do something. And then we just remain blocked in front of the unhappiness or the suffering of others. This can happen often. So, one of the important things of the path is that once I understand that every small little action does make a difference, once I understand that the state of mind, of being of the other person does not depend only on me, but my interaction will make a difference, even if I don't see directly the result, then I will do everything on my abilities, on my possibilities to make your life better. Is it clear, this? Which means, if I think that I can make you happy, then I may try for some time, and then after I will just forget about it. If I think that through my actions I can interact with you, and I can be part of the process of your happiness, I can be part of the process of your life, then that's wonderful. Because this is another thing. What's the only thing that we can do to help someone else? It doesn't matter if we are the most ordinary human being or if we are the most powerful Buddha. The only thing that can be done to help someone else is to interact. No one is able to go inside and take the suffering out. No one is able to go and put qualities inside the other person. The only thing we can do is interact. And by right interaction, we gradually can help the other to change. It's very similar to the concept of transferring knowledge, of teaching. You know? When we need to teach someone, we have basically two limitations. Our knowledge, we cannot teach what we don't know. And we have the other limitation, is the knowledge of the other person. I can only teach you using the knowledge that you already have. It's like, matanda kiran sulamune tane, ta ninje singe de shira kachimbre, ta ninje trubula ngazo chundro shira che gogre, chedan dakshin nyamje gomba de shindu kachimbre. I have said the thing, okay? But what happens? If I do not adapt to your knowledge, I'm not able to transfer to you my knowledge. I said the same thing in Tibetan, of the importance of compassion or whatever, okay? So, when we want to teach someone, the first thing that we need, sure, to have the knowledge, but a very fundamental aspect is to understand the one that we are teaching to. And is to adapt to his or her level. It's quite incredible, the transferring knowledge. It's very incredible because it means, if I need to teach, it means I take my knowledge, I adapt it to your knowledge, and I help you to use your own knowledge, existing knowledge, to interact in order that you understand something new. This is clear. It's quite amazing, actually. Transferring knowledge is not I take something and I put inside of the other person. It's I interact with the other person so that the person will develop that new knowledge. Okay? That's why learning is gradual. We cannot go and transfer some knowledge to the person if the person doesn't have the basis to reach there. No? That's why it takes time very often. Helping is just in the same way. When teaching, we interact with the resources that the person already have. And based that, we try to generate new understanding. When helping, we interact with the resources that the person already has. And we try by that to generate a new state of being, a new understanding. But we must adapt to the other, first of all. So one of the very important things in helping others is humbleness. Humbleness, not in the sense, oh, I am not a Superman, that I'm helping everyone. Sure, that's not good to have this idea, but humbleness in the sense that I must understand you first, if I want to help you. And very often we want to help someone, but we want to impose our way of helping, and we are not open to understand the other. It's like if I come and I continue to repeat the same thing in Tibetan to someone that doesn't speak Tibetan, and then finally I say, you don't want to understand it. And you just come to me and say, sorry, but I don't speak Tibetan. I said, that's not my problem. I told you what you need to know. And then I still complain, no, he doesn't want to listen. He doesn't want to learn. How many times we listen, oh, he doesn't want my help. We don't know how to help very often. So helping others actually means, first of all, adapt to the needs, to the mentality, to the capacity, to the resources of the other. And then we need to see, okay, with that resources that are there, how can I interact in the best way? And that's one of the most difficult parts, actually, is understanding the other and adapting ourselves to their needs and to their capacities. And one thing that very often creates frustration, because sometimes when we see the resources that others have, we are not able to find in which way we can truly help, because some resources are missing in order to be able to receive what we can offer. It's like, what is the point of telling someone something that a person doesn't want to listen? It doesn't work. So we need to find a way around. We cannot help someone if we do not speak their language. Not verbally, but their way of thinking. So to truly help someone, we must understand their worldview, we must understand their mentality, we must understand how they do things. And then we adapt to their reality and we show our reality. But this takes time. That's why actually, when we really open our hearts towards others, there is one sort of frustration in which says, but how can I truly help everyone? I don't have the tools. Everyone doesn't mean the whole world, means at least those that are around me, it's already a lot. And that's where comes bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which is, I must develop myself, I must have more wisdom, I must have more strength, so that I can help others better. So taking care of oneself becomes part of the process of helping others. It's like if I am a doctor and I find myself in a place where there is a sickness that I don't know how to treat. Having the goodwill to help the sick people is not enough. So I need to go, I need to study, I need to learn, I need to develop methods that can cure that disease. And when I am there all alone studying and doing my own research, while there is people suffering outside, it's not a lack of compassion. I'm developing myself so that I can help them better. Okay. So the path of the Bodhisattva means I will help everyone in the limits of what I am available, and I will develop myself as priority in order to be able to help better. This is important. Okay, so now let's go back to our text. We are in verse number 7. And it says, in short, may I offer to all my mothers, both actually and indirectly. Here when it says mothers, it doesn't mean necessarily our mother, it means sentient beings. It means everyone. Okay? So it says, in short, may I offer to all my mothers, both actually and indirectly, whatever will benefit and bring them joy. And may I hiddenly accept upon myself all my mother's troubles and woes. We must remember that this text of mind training is showing us how to overcome our selfishness and how to develop a true altruistic attitude. Okay? And as we saw in the previous days, altruism basically is to take that deep, strong wish to be happy and not to suffer and to share it with everyone else. And to relate to others independently of what others are to us. So I love you because you exist, that's all. No? There is one verse in Bodhisattva Charyavatara. If I am not wrong, it's more or less around verse number 58 from the 8th chapter. And it says something like that. I don't remember the precise words, but the meaning is like this. In the same way that I wish to be happy, all other sentient beings around me also wish to be happy. What is there so special about myself that I only take care of my happiness? Why is my happiness more important than theirs when we all want the same? In the same way that I don't want to suffer, everyone else around me also don't want to suffer. What is there so special about me that my suffering is more important than theirs? Actually nothing. But because we are obsessed with our own selves, we are not able to see others. Just before we explain this verse, there is a very important thing, because there are many people here today that were not here the previous days, so we need just to go back one step behind. Which is, we are selfish, yes. At least I am. You know? I don't know, maybe you're all Buddhas helping me on my path, I don't know, but basically, sincerely speaking, I think we are selfish. Okay? So, we are selfish. Okay, that's a fact. We are obsessed by our own happiness. We give priority to our own well-being and our own suffering. Okay. So if we are selfish, let's do it right at least. Do I want to be happy? Yes. Then let me do the right thing to be happy. That's fine. Because we cannot develop an altruistic mind by blocking the selfishness. Because we are selfish. We cannot destroy what we are to become something new. We must use what we are to become something new. So, we should get to the process in which we deeply understand that, selfishly speaking, for my own happiness, the best thing is to be altruistic. And we don't need much to understand that. Just put together, the more selfish people are, normally the more unsatisfied they become. The more altruistic people are, the more they care for others, the more they love others, the more satisfied they are. No? We can see this in many examples in life. So, which one do I want to follow? And we can go deeper and deeper into many different examples. And we can go deeper and deeper into understanding that selfishness is actually creating us a lot of suffering. is the main cause of our suffering. But if we do not understand that clearly, then very difficultly we will be able to overcome it. We must really get to the point in which we understand that, selfishly speaking, it's better to be altruistic. I will just repeat something which we said the day before yesterday. What is one very, just to picture one part of the selfish mind, which we have been calling the unhealthy mind, the sick mind. Through selfishness, we relate to the world, people, situation, objects, in 9 categories, which are called traditionally the 9 objects. Basically, it's like this. Those that are beneficial to me, that benefit me, I see them as my friends. Okay? So there's those that benefit me are my friends. Then there are those that harm me, my enemies. And then those that do not benefit me or harm me, indifferent. Okay? So from this tree, we multiply them by 3. Basically, there are those that benefit me are my friends. Those that benefit my friends are my friends. And those that harm my enemies are my friends. Okay? Most often, to have an enemy in common brings more connection than having a friend in common. It's crazy, but it's like that. So sometimes if we want to make connection to a person, we try to find something, an enemy in common. Which doesn't mean to be a person, it can be something that we don't like. So sometimes we will find something to criticize as a way to try to make connection. Okay. Those that harm us, our enemies. Those that harm our friends, our enemies. Those that benefit our enemies, our enemies. The friend of my enemy is my enemy. Those that benefit our enemies are our enemies. It's crazy if we really look clearly to it. It's ugly, but that's how it is. And those that are not benefiting or harming ourselves, our friends, or our enemies, we are indifferent. This is the first way, the first base level through which we relate to the world through selfishness. On top of that comes the attitude of selfishness that is the same towards friends, enemies, or indifferent. Let's even think about friends, but it's the same. Towards those that have less than us, those that are less beautiful, those that are less intelligent, those that are less rich, those that are less humble, those that are less spiritual, or whatever. Those that we see that have something less than us, we relate with superiority, arrogance. Those that have more than us, envy. And those that are equal to us, competition. It's so tiring. You know? It's like one time I made a comment to one person and I got an answer that was a little bit shocking to me, but it's a good example in this case. I went to a friend and I said, oh, you know, look how beautiful that person is doing this retreat. Meditation retreat, so nice actually. And then the person answered me, oh yes, if I could live out of, money that I own, like if I didn't need to work, I would also do a retreat. Which means, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about that person. Let's see how nice he's doing a retreat. Yeah? Right away there is the envy, to look at the other. Because he has something that I don't have. And when we see someone is equal, we right away try to take the rifle and check where is the mistake, to shoot. And it's extremely tiring always to be in these attitudes. It's actually very tiring, isn't it? To be constantly in competition. Who is more beautiful, who is more powerful, who is more intelligent, who receives more attention, who is more loved, who is more humble, who is whatever, you know. Who is the best unze, who is the best practitioner, who is the best disciple, whatever. Even like this we do with the brothers and sisters, this we do even with the guru. Or who receives more attention, who is being received more smiles, or whatever. You know. So this competition mind is extremely tiring. But the mind of pride, in the sense, the mind of feeling of superiority, it's also very tiring, because when we feel superior, it comes also with fear of losing that superiority. And envy is also extremely tiring. So this is just a glimpse of what it means to be selfish. It means constantly to live in the world of friends, enemies, envy, competition, and pride, and arrogance. It's very tiring. So, once we truly understand, I don't want to be selfish. Because the more I am obsessed with my own happiness, the more I suffer. And I don't want to suffer. So by that, we need to start doing two things. We need to avoid the behaviors that make selfishness stronger. And we need to develop more, familiarize ourselves with the attitudes, the behaviors of an altruistic, loving, kind mind. Okay? So now, verse number 7. In short, may I offer to all my mothers, both actually and indirectly, whatever will benefit and bring them joy. And may I heedily accept on myself all my mother's troubles and woes. What is the natural attitude of selfishness? Whatever is good and pleasurable, I want it for myself. Whatever is painful and harmful and suffering, I want it far away from myself. Where it goes, it doesn't matter, as long as it's not with the I and the mind. Because some people say, I am not selfish. My children are more important than me. Your children. My is an extension of I. Okay? And there is even a more subtle aspect. Some people may think I am not selfish because I really care for everyone. When actually, what they really care is for their image of being a kind person. I don't know if it's clear this. There is this trap. When we do not truly care for the happiness of others, when we care for developing a positive image of ourselves as being kind and loving. It's very subtle. If we are in that position, better to continue in that way than to stop being kind. But then gradually, we need to make it more truthful inside of us. Am I really attracted by your happiness? Yes or not? And do I really have aversion towards your suffering? Yes or not? So, the natural attitude of selfishness is what is good for myself, what is bad, far away from myself. So here, the secret tool, the secret instruction to cut our selfishness is to act in an opposite way to it. So what does that mean? What is good, I offer. What is bad, I take upon myself, and I will deal with it. Okay? By that, what we do is that we enter into a directly opposite attitude from selfishness itself. This practice is called Tonglen, which means giving and taking. It's a very powerful practice, and it must be practiced with some acknowledgements. So normally we do it in the following way. This first part is like, it's like the preliminary, the preparation for the Tonglen. It's fundamentally important. Okay? So whenever we do Tonglen, we should always connect to this first part, this first preparation, which is, actually this is not something that we find written in most of the books of Tonglen. Trijang Rinpoche stated very clear in one of his books that he talks about this practice. And actually, even the first time I was teaching Tonglen, one of the first times Rinpoche asked me, oh, but how have you been teaching it? And then I explained it. I said, okay, then okay. So this first part, it's very important. It is the following. Before giving and taking, we imagine at our heart, the center of our chest, something like a black mass. Okay? It is quite thick. It is quite sticky, dense. And what it represents? Our own selfishness. It absorbs into it all the negativities, and it represents our anger, our jealousy, our pride, our ignorance. So it represents our selfishness and all its manifestations. So first of all, we must look at our own selfishness, give it a form as this black mass in our own heart. There are different ways. The one I prefer is with the black mass. It can be done in different ways also, after I explain. Different visualization, but this one is the one that I think it fits the best for us. Trijang Rinpoche explained at least 4 different ways. Okay? So, the most common one, which I prefer to practice, is we imagine this black mass in our heart. The important thing, that first we recognize our own selfishness until we develop this strong intention, I want to be free from my selfishness. Like we feel the heaviness of selfishness, feel the heaviness of this obsession with ourselves. If we are not able to go to this step, do not go to the next one. If we are not able to feel the heaviness of selfishness, then we shouldn't go to the next step of the practice. Okay? So first we feel the heaviness of our own selfishness. Once we have done that, we can also imagine, for example, that like all the negativities in the form of smoke and dirt from the whole of our body, symbolizing our sicknesses, our negative karma, symbolizing our anger, our traumas, our jealousy, our fears, everything is absorbed into this black mass in our heart. It symbolizes all our negativities. And then, normally we should do this part until we feel almost physically the heaviness of it. It's like if we feel there is no more space inside and I must do something to take this away. Once we get there, then we go to the next step. On the next step, we start looking at others around us. We go out of this bubble of only ourselves, and we pop the bubble, let's say, and we start looking that there is a whole world around us. And we start observing with care each and every one. So we start observing our friends, and we say, do they suffer? Yes. Are they jealous, envy, ignorant? Do they have negative karma? As I do, yes. Do they want to be happy? Yes, they do. Then we observe them. And we see that actually they are in the same situation as we are. They also want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. Then we expand this to the people that we don't know. Maybe people that we relate in our daily lives, but we are indifferent to them. You know, the guy selling the newspaper, or the one serving us in the restaurant, or whoever else. And we start seeing they suffer in the same way. They also want to be happy in the same way. And then we go one step further, and we observe the people that we don't like. We look at those that we have aversion, so-called enemies. And we look until we are able to see their suffering. Until we can see the person, independently of what is the relation that they have with us. Independently if they have been nice or harmful to us, I see that he or she suffers and wants to be happy. So finally, I get to the conclusion there is no difference between what I feel, where I am, and those around me. Dependently if they are my friend, my enemies, if I don't know them well, we are all in the same situation. Then I allow myself to, first I focus in this very strong wish that I have to be happy and not to suffer. It's like if I condense this energy, I focus on it, I look at this energy, and then once it's clearly there, I just allow it to open and to share with others. And then I start looking at all of those around, and I start having the feeling is not conceptual. We should generate deeply, may you be happy. We are attracted by the happiness of others, and we have aversion towards their suffering. So we look at the people we know, we look at our friends, we look at our enemies, the people that we are indifferent, and from that we multiply to everyone, animals, insects, it doesn't matter, any living being. And then we generate a deep, strong wish, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering. Which is not, how to say, sacrificing one's own happiness. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do by sharing that wish of happiness and that aversion towards suffering that we have towards ourselves, will simply expand it towards others. And then once we do that, we generate the intention, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, and I will do everything I can for that to happen. So may I take upon myself your suffering, and may I give to you my happiness. And we ask the blessings of our gurus and all the Buddhas and all holy beings, please bless me, to give me the strength and the wisdom to be able to take upon myself the suffering of others and to be able to give my happiness and well-being to them. And from that moment, we breathe in, and as we inhale, we imagine that the suffering of others, their sicknesses, their mental defilements such as anger, ignorance, selfishness, their negative karma, any negativities they have, we imagine that they all come in the form of black smoke. And as we inhale that black smoke, it goes inside of us, and then it absorbs into our heart, actually into the black mass of our heart. And it's like two negative forces that as they join, one destroys the other. So the more negativities I take upon myself, the weaker the black mass at my heart becomes. It's clear, this process. So it's not that I take the suffering of others upon myself and then here I am suffering like hell. No. It means I take the suffering upon others, upon myself, which I really have with the intention clearly, but I have a tool to transform it. Because it's a direct antidote to my own selfishness. So it comes upon my heart into the black mass, And the more it absorbs negativities, the weaker it becomes. Then when we exhale, we imagine light that goes towards them, bringing them happiness, bringing them well-being, good health, wealth, love, patience, stability, wisdom, satisfaction. So anything that we have positive, it multiplies into infinite. And we give everything that we have of good, it multiplies to everyone. Then again we inhale and we take the suffering upon ourselves. And then it makes the black mass of our heart weaker. And then we give joy, happiness. And every time that we take suffering upon ourselves, we feel this black mass of the heart little smaller and weaker, and we start to feel more light inside of us each. So, we do this for some time, and in the end of the meditation, we get to the conclusion in which all those around us are free from suffering, and the black mass of our heart is gone. Okay? So, this is a very powerful meditation. It works when done. If we don't do it, it will not work. But it's actually very powerful. I can assure you, if we do this practice 15 minutes, 10 minutes, once a day, for 2 weeks, we will not be the same after the 2 weeks. One thing that we need to be careful is that when we start doing this practice, sometimes our own selfish mind comes and makes a rebellion. Saying, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Do you really want the suffering of others? You know. And then, in this moment, we should always go back to saying, what I don't want is my selfishness. And I want others to be happy, yes. So, we should repeat it again and again. And also in our daily life, there are many ways how we can do this. For example, whenever we have a moment of pleasure, let's say I drink a very nice glass of water, and I feel pleasure. Our natural selfish attitude towards pleasure is, I want more for myself. Okay? And whenever we have something that is unpleasant, we have a headache, we have too much hot or cold or whatever, what is our normal selfish attitude? I don't want to suffer. Okay? So basically, whenever there is pleasure or whenever there is suffering, what is our priority? I and mine. So how can we go in the opposite direction? We don't need to avoid pleasures, and we don't need to go to look for suffering. But whenever we have a moment of pleasure, we think, may everyone experience this pleasure as I experience. We offer it to everyone. Internally, we share it. So what we are doing, we are thinking about others when we are having something good. And we say, may I experience the more. The more I experience this pleasure, the more I can offer to others. So we don't need to experience the pleasure with guilt. We offer it to others. We offer that pleasure to the holy beings. We dedicate it and we offer it to sentient beings, to everyone, to our friends, to our family. And we deep inside wish, may everyone experience this pleasure and this joy that I am experiencing. So basically we transform selfish moment to an altruistic moment. Then, when we are in moments of suffering and pain, Let's make, for example, a headache. Instead of thinking and being obsessed, oh, I must eliminate my headache, my headache, my headache. Just think, may anyone else who has a similar pain as mine, may they be free from their pain. And may me, by eliminating my pain, may I eliminate the pain of everyone else. So we imagine that by taking away our pain, we are taking away the pain of everyone else that have a similar sickness. Then again, what we are doing is we are transforming a selfish moment to a moment of altruism, where we're actually opening our heart. And someone may ask, but can I really take upon myself the suffering of others? No. If it was possible, then many Buddhas would have already done it. But what we can do is that we can open our hearts towards others. And by wishing that we take upon ourselves the suffering of others, we actually go against our selfishness and we develop qualities that we can truly help others. So, in our daily life, whenever we have a good moment, we dedicate it, we offer it. Start to offer it to our friends, to our families, to the people we know and we don't know. Whenever we have a moment of pain, we dedicate, may everyone be free of the similar pain, and may through my pain, eliminating my pain, may I eliminate the pain of everyone else. I remember one time, very clearly, I saw it actually 2 times with Rinpoche, when he was in pain. One time I did something which I really regretted. I didn't do with any awareness, but no any guilt, but in the moment it was like this. It was actually into a very important ceremony here. Everyone in the line, waiting Rinpoche with an umbrella and everything else. And then Rinpoche arrived in the car. I was accompanying him to come out of the car. And then I was not aware, and when I closed the door, Rinpoche's hand was there. Actually, Rinpoche had some arthritis also in his hand. So luckily I didn't close the door really strong, but still it's very painful. No? So I saw clearly that it was painful. And then I wanted to do something, and Rinpoche looked to me saying, stop it, don't move, don't do anything, don't show to others that I am in pain. So I do like if nothing happened. Inside sure was not that the feeling. But then I was accompanying Rinpoche through the pathway, and it was clearly that he was in pain. And he was reciting in a loud, like say, in a very silent voice, he was reciting the verse in which says, Tena Jetsun Lama Tuje Chimagyu Drueti Dikduma Kumalo Tata Dala Mimba Tantaki Degi Shanatama Yudrugundan from the Guru Puja, in which says, oh, my precious Guru, bless me. May all the suffering of sentient beings ripen upon myself. Basically, what he was doing is practicing Tonglen. No? Another moment which I saw him doing the same was one time here. I didn't see the actual moment, I just saw the after moment, in which, without going into details, Rinpoche was doing something, trying to lift up. If you look down the pond there is a statue of a dolphin. Rinpoche was so happy when he bought this dolphin statue. And he was going to see Chichen Rinpoche in Austria, and the way back he bought this statue. And he needed to rise up the statue, and many people wanted to help, and he wanted to do himself. And there was a sort of machine to do that, and it was connected to one of these elastics with the metal hook. And he made it, somehow it was too strong, whatever, and the hook came out. And it turned around and it went to his face and cut near to his eyes. Quite bad, so there was a lot of blood coming out and so on. And there again, I saw just after, I didn't see the actual moment, and there was Rinpoche again, reciting the same verse. Recitation means directing the mind. So it means, in the moment of pain, I take upon myself the pain of others, through my pain. I'm not asking to have more pain. I'm just opening my heart towards others in the moment of pain. Say, may through my pain, I eliminate the pain of others. So, These were two moments that I remember where clearly Rinpoche was doing his own personal practice. So this is an example for all of us that take upon ourselves the pain of others doesn't mean that we want to have more pain. It means that in the moment of pain, we open our heart towards others. And we wish that may through my pain, which I am already having, I eliminate the pain of others. May through my loneliness, I eliminate the loneliness of others. Which is not may I be more lonely, means may I eliminate my loneliness, and by that I help to eliminate the loneliness of others. So basically, the idea is we shift our attitude from a selfish attitude to an altruistic attitude. When there is pleasure, when there is pain. Okay? So we do this in meditation, by visualization, and we do this in our daily life. If we are on a situation where we see someone in suffering, we can very briefly visualize the selfishness in our heart. And then imagine the suffering of that person coming towards us and melting the selfishness, and the person being free from the suffering as we take upon ourselves. Basically what we need to do is we need to train ourselves constantly into an opposite attitude of selfishness. If we do this in every moment, then gradually it will be natural to wish to be attracted for the happiness of others and to have aversion for their sufferings. And to have this in the mind all the time. There is one fundamental aspect here that we cannot forget. Developing the altruistic mind, exchanging self with others, doesn't mean sacrificing oneself and one's own happiness. Because our normal attitude is that we have a very dualistic view in which when I do something for others, I'm sacrificing myself. When I do something for myself, I feel guilty because I don't think of others. We must go beyond this duality and reach the state in which when I do something for others, I'm also doing it for myself because I love them. And when I do something for myself, it's all I'm also doing for others, because if I am not well, how can I help others? So we don't need to enter into this state of guilt for taking care of ourselves, or the state of sacrifice when we do something for others, because at no moment we should abandon our own happiness and we should wish for our own suffering. At no moment this is the purpose. What we are saying is that we go beyond the division of self and others. And our happiness is important as the happiness of others. And the happiness of others is important as our own happiness. This is what we mean. And when we mean to exchange self with others, means we exchange the attitude that we have only towards ourselves, we exchange it with others, we offer it to others. So it means this obsession with happiness that we have towards ourselves, we share it with others. That's all. Selfishly speaking, it's much, much better to be altruistic. We must get that. Something that, once we understand it deeply, then it changes completely the whole process. But still, we will be selfish. Because we have such a deep habit of acting selfishly. So it's a long process of avoiding selfish actions and attitudes, developing altruistic attitudes. Then the more we do, gradually it becomes more natural. So we shouldn't enter into the act, oh, I understood now why I'm still selfish. Because I'm used to be like that. I am conditioned in this way. I grow up in this context. So from the gross to the subtle level, that's where we are. So it takes our own process of gradually doing this, of gradually open our hearts toward others. And you know, we all like to be loved, right? I think love is a very powerful thing. And when we see that someone loves us, we feel happy. It somehow gives us a good feeling. On the other side, when there is someone that we expect to love us and we don't feel love, it gives us a lot of suffering. Okay? But the main point is that we do so much to be loved. The way we dress sometimes, the way we talk, choices we make. We want others to love us. But actually, yes, it's true that it's good to be loved. But it's much, much better to feel love. Because when we connect to love, it gives us this deep joy. And when we feel someone loving us, we connect to love. But when we love others, we connect to love in the same way, in a much more powerful way. So one advice is, let's not depend on others loving us, but let us love others. The less we expect to be loved, and the more we love others without needing to be loved back, the better we will be. The more we try to love like making business. I give you this in order for you to give me that, because business basically is exchange, right? I give something that you need, and you give me something that I need or want. No. And many times we think that we love, but we are making business. I give you affection, and you give me affection. I give you care, and you give me care. And when I give to you and you don't give it back, then the business is not working, so I don't do business with you anymore. But when we do love without, not in a business mode, I love you because I simply wish you to be happy, and it doesn't matter really if you love me or not. I will love you. It's a very, very empowering state of being. And it's very interesting because the more we love others without expecting others to love us, the more love we receive. I don't know if it's clear this. But the more we love others without having any expectation to receive love back, finally the more love we receive from others. Okay? So, the practice of Tonglen is a very powerful practice. And we can do it in our meditation, but we should also do it in our daily life. And to do it really, it takes some courage. Not the courage of taking the suffering of others, but the courage of going against our selfishness. And there will be a lot of, if we really do it well, we will find most probably a lot of resistance inside. Because we are used to being this way. We are conditioned to be this way. Okay? So now, to conclude for today, let's read the last verse. Okay? And it says, Deta Kunkyan Chokyi Tokpe Chime Mabakshin Chokyi Gyaltsen Shenme Chingwa Le Troll Sho. Through a mind untarnished by stains of conceptions concerning 8 passing things, throughout all of this, and that knows all phenomena as an illusion, may I break free from my bondage without any clinging. Tomorrow we will look the second half of this verse. Today we just look the first half, which is connected to what we have been saying. True mind that is untarnished, unstained, is not polluted by the what's so-called worldly concerns, the 8 worldly concerns, or the 8 mundane dharmas. Okay? Here translated as the 8 conceptions concerning passing things. Basically, what are the 8 worldly concerns? Or the 8 worldly dharmas? Are the ones that we practice perfectly. And basically, making it in very few words, it means to project our happiness into pleasure, to project our happiness into material gain, and to project our happiness into our own image and the recognition of our image. No? The 8 mundane dharmas means I get happy when I get the object of desire. I get unhappy, I suffer when I do not get the object of desire. I am happy when I have a physical pleasure, and I am unhappy when I have physical unpleasure. I am happy when I am praised. I am unhappy when I am criticized. I am happy when others recognize my qualities. I am unhappy when others talk about my faults. Okay, do we practice well this? I think so. Okay. So, we already do this a lot in our life. But in the practice of Lojong, in this mind training, in order for the mind training to be truthful, we must avoid the mind training practice, whenever we do anything connected to it, to be polluted by these 8 mundane concerns. And basically, I don't think it's the case for most of us that we will practice the mind training of being loving and kind towards others, and to take upon ourselves the loss, and to give towards others the victory, and everything else that we have seen, because of money. That's not the case of most of us. I don't think we will do that because of body pleasures. Right? But can we do that because of our image? Can I develop an attitude of being kind and loving because I want to be the kind and loving person that everybody respects? It can happen. It can happen that I develop a very idealized image of myself, of being nice and kind and good and altruistic, and truly I don't care about others, but I care of being that altruistic, nice, kind person. This is worldly concern. Can we be completely free of the worldly concerns like this? No. So my advice is that whenever we see that our actions concerning our practice are polluted by the attachment to our image, we continue to act, but in more and more in secrecy. And we gradually avoid that. We try to be more and more truthful to ourselves, make choices in a more truthful way, and gradually be less and less concerned with our image. It's a long process, and it's not an easy process. It is said, for example, that some meditators, they abandon attachment to mundane things, such as money and power and pleasures. So they go to live in a very simple life, in mountain, meditating, eating very simple food, having a long time dedicating their life in a very simple way. But happens sometimes that when they go down to the village, they think, oh, here is coming the great meditator. So they are attached to their image as being the great meditator. Sometimes even we are very humble, but we are attached to the image of being humble. And then if someone doesn't see us as humble, we may get very upset. This means we are not really humble. So, it's very important for us to look at our own image, like not to be attached to it. Because this is a very deep trap. And it's very subtle, because we may pass a long time of our life doing really good things. But, how to say, it's like if we are in contact with a very beautiful reality, but there is a very tiny layer in between that doesn't allow that reality to deeply touch us. So, it's like if there is a glass in between. And this very tiny layer that doesn't allow that reality to deeply touch us is the attachment to our image. Which means I can stay a long time helping others, doing really good things, behaving in a wonderful way. But if I do that without my attitude being polluted with the attachment of being the good, kind, right person and having that recognition, finally I have not truly touched my heart and changed my behavior. And that's very dangerous. Sure, it's better to be a kind and good person because I want to have that image than act in a negative way. I'm still familiarizing myself with love and kindness, but I'm not making a deep, profound change in myself. That's why I practice in secrecy. There was one Lama one time in south of India. He was in the house of one of my gurus, the abbot of Tashilumpu. And he would do his daily practices. And the rooms in India, Tibetan tradition, it was very hot, so the door was always open, then there was this curtain in front. So when no one was watching, and he knew no one was watching, you could look at him like from the side of the curtain, and he would be meditating really in the perfect position, very clear meditation. But then, if someone passed by and he saw that someone was staring at him, he would make like as if he was sleeping. Why? Because he knew his weakness. That's my point of view. Huh? He knew his weakness of the attachment of being the great meditator. So he didn't want to give the image to others of being a good meditator. Why? Because he doesn't want to be attached to that. So he was doing his meditation in secrecy. Okay. It's like one of my other teachers, Geshe Tukte Rinpoche, great master. One time we were to the teachings of the Dalai Lama. His Holiness was giving teachings in the monastery of Sera, and there were like thousands of people, like 6,000 people listening to the teachings. And at the time, His Holiness the Dalai Lama will always call him personally, send an attendant to call for him, to sit very near to him during the teachings. His Holiness had a lot of affection towards him and respect. So he was called to sit around because he had no any important position. He has never been an abbot. He never had any position in the monastery to be seated in the front, really. Because whenever they tried to give him a position, he avoided, even by escaping from the monastery. When they tried to make him abbot, He literally escaped from the monastery. His attendant in the morning brought him breakfast and he was not there anymore. And then he left a letter in which was saying, until there is not the certainty that I will not be abbot, I'm not coming back. So, there are many reasons for that. But the specific story was that he was called to sit in front, where all the important masters and the abbots and like the important lamas and everyone like in the hierarchy of the monastery, like the top part. Monastery have a very precise hierarchy. So where he would actually sit, outside, together with the lay people, after the young monks, near a sound box. And he was there to listen to the teachings. So I went to him and I said, Gela, why do you do that? Why don't you come inside? You know, you will get hot tea. Because when the tea gets, so imagine to serve tea for 6,000 people. When the tea reaches the last part of the line, it's already cold. No? And then there the sun is very strong where you are. You cannot see the Dalai Lama as he teaches. You can be near to him, you can see him. So much nicer actually. And then he gave me the following answer. The higher you sit, the more painful it is when you fall down. And then basically he said, I know myself. If I sit there, I will not concentrate so well in the teachings. And a part of my mind will start looking who is seated in the important positions. What do they think about me? Maybe some don't like because I'm sitting where I'm not supposed to sit. Maybe someone else is jealous because I'm here, the other one is envy. Maybe I start to feel superiority of others, and most of all I will get attached to that position. Finally, instead of listening to the teachings as a way to transform my mind, I will just cultivate the attachment to my own image and position. So I know my weakness, so I stay outside. Okay, I'm putting some more words to what he told me to make it more clear, but essentially was that. And I was like, wow. So we need to protect ourselves from our weaknesses also. So that's why the practice must be done in secrecy. We don't need to show the world that we are practicing giving up our selfishness and becoming the most loving, kind person. No one needs to know about it. It's an inner process that we do because we know it's the best for us and others. Okay? So, really be careful to change one's own mind because we know that that's the best for us and others. And not because we try to build up an image of what we like others to see us. Okay? And not even what I would like others to see us. Sometimes it's just the image of what we think we should be. Which somehow is good also. But it very often it prevents us from making a deeper change. We don't need to fulfill an image, we need to become, we need to be it. Then the image doesn't matter once we are the actual thing. Okay? This is something very difficult. I know that we are talking about aspects that are like very advanced practice. It's not something that we can do easily. But it's not impossible to follow this direction. Okay? So, tomorrow we will look at the second part of the verse, which is a very, very important one, which says, and that knows all phenomena as an illusion. May I break free from my bondage. Bondage of what? Of ignorance and selfishness. Bondage of samsara. Without any attachment, without any clinging. So, It's very interesting, no? May I be free from my bondage without attachment to it. Are we attached to our selfishness? A lot. No? We are very much attached to our problems even, to our difficulties. Somehow, even sometimes we are attached to our difficulties and problems because that's a way so that we don't need to put the responsibility upon ourselves. Well, you know, there are plenty of things to blame me for my own unstable self. So let's keep them there so I don't need to look upon myself. Anyhow, that's not the point right now. The point is that yes, we do have attachment for our own selfishness. We do have this, we hold to it as the only possibility. And it takes time to truly make that shift in which, selfishly speaking, is better to be altruistic. To make the shift in which we go free from this blockage of sharing the love that we have with others. But to be able truly to be free, we must have also wisdom. So is there wisdom and love. With these two together, it's like two wings that allows us to fly. So up to now we talked about the part which regards love, developing love. Tomorrow we will see the part of developing wisdom. Okay? So for concluding today, we will just read the 8 verses together once. Those that have the text in English that like to follow me, please read together. May I cherish all limited beings by considering how far superior they are to wish-granting gems for actualizing the supreme aim. Whenever I come into anyone's company, may I regard myself less than everyone else, and from the depth of my heart value others more highly than I do myself. Whatever I am doing, may I check the flow of my mind, and at the moment that conceptions or disturbing emotions arise, since they debilitate myself and others, may I confront and avert them with forceful means. Whenever I see beings instinctively cruel, overpowered by negativities and serious problems, may I cherish them as difficult to find, as discovering a treasure of gems. When others, out of envy, treat me unfairly, with scolding, insults, and more, may I accept the loss upon myself and offer the victory to others. Even if someone whom I have helped and from whom I harbor great expectations were to harm me completely unfairly, may I view him or her as a hallowed teacher. In short, may I offer to all my mothers, both actually and indirectly, whatever will benefit and bring them joy, and may I hiddenly accept upon myself all my mother's troubles and woes. Through a mind untarnished by stains of conceptions concerning 8 passing things, throughout all of this, and that knows all phenomena as an illusion, may I break free from my bondage without any clinging. Chanchu semchu rinpoche make kepanya pranepaya Buddha kutu pewa Chetsu lame kutsera tenchi Katrime chuchu kepana Losan tempedrume sasungi Rove munsen tatu negyurashi Imodele tsendele Nime guyandele shi Nitse tatu delete Koncho sungi jingiro Koncho sungi nodruso Koncho sungi tashisho. At dawn, dusk, and night or midday,
May the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
All'alba,
Al tramonto, in notte durante il giorno, possano i tuoi gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e costarci di sentire nella nostra vita molti segni di buon auspicio.
de sol a sol, a noite ou meio-dia, possam as três joias conceder-nos suas bênçãos, possam as três joias ajudar-nos a alcançar todas as realizações, possam as três joias espalhar muitos sinais auspiciosos no caminho de nossas vidas. Al amanecer, al anochecer, por la noche durante el día, puedan las tres joyas concedernos sus bendiciones, puedan ayudarnos a obtener todas las realizaciones y colmar el sendero de nuestras vidas con muchos signos de buen auspicio. French.
Angenommen, nachts oder mittags mögen diese Erwägungen gesegnet werden, mögen sie uns helfen, alle verwirklichen unsere Namen und unser Lebensweg die verschiedensten Segenszeiten Bij ons opgang en zonsondergang bij nacht of middag, mogen de drie juwelen ons de zegeningen schenken. Mogen ze ons helpen alle realisaties te verwerken en het pad van ons leven besproeien met variërende tekens van voorspoed. Wat